Lily was a shadow in the city, a whisper in the wind. She was small for her 10 years, her clothes were ragged, and her bare feet knew every crack in the pavement. Hope was a distant memory, like a song her mother used to sing, a song she could barely recall. Sleep was a stolen hour in a doorway, a fitful doze interrupted by the rumble of trucks or the sharp eyes of strangers. She had no family, no friends, only the gnawing emptiness in her stomach and the heavy weight of loneliness in her heart. But even in the darkness, a tiny spark of kindness flickered within Lily. She wouldn't steal, even when hunger twisted her insides. She would share the scraps she found with stray dogs and pigeons, whispering words of comfort to them in her soft voice. The other street children were tough, hardened by their experiences. They didn't understand Lily's gentle nature. They called her soft. But Lily didn't care. She couldn't be anything other than what she was. A small, lost girl with a heart full of compassion, even when her own world felt empty. She believed, somewhere deep inside, that even the smallest act of kindness could make a difference, a tiny light in the overwhelming darkness. This belief was all she had left. The city was a dangerous place for a little girl alone. Each day was a struggle to find enough food to quiet the rumbling in her tummy. Sometimes a kind bakery worker would slip her a day-old roll, still soft in the middle. Other times, she had to rely on searching through overflowing bins, careful to avoid the sharp edges and the glares of those who guarded their scraps jealously. Finding a safe place to sleep was even harder. Doorways offered a small shield from the wind, but they also attracted unwanted attention. Men with harsh voices and hungry eyes would sometimes try to shoo her away, or worse. She learned to be quick, to disappear into the shadows like a frightened mouse. One evening, huddled beneath a flickering streetlight, Lily found a small, injured bird. Its wing was bent at an unnatural angle. Ignoring her own hunger, Lily carefully scooped up the bird and gently stroked its feathers. She tore a piece of cloth from her already tattered skirt and fashioned a makeshift sling for its wing. As she whispered soothing words, the bird looked up at her with bright, trusting eyes. It was a tiny connection in a world of isolation, a reminder that even in the darkest corners, kindness could still bloom. That night, Lily shared her meager piece of bread with the bird, sacrificing her own comfort for another living creature. The sun beat down on the dusty road leading into town. A lone figure, silhouetted against the shimmering heat haze, rode atop a large, chestnut-colored horse. This was Jake, a cowboy returning home after months spent on a long and tiring cattle drive. His face was weathered and tanned, his eyes the color of a clear summer sky. He wore a worn leather hat, shielding him from the sun, and his denim shirt was faded from countless washes. Dusty, his loyal horse, plodded along at a steady pace, his hooves kicking up small clouds of dust. Jake and Dusty were inseparable, having been together since Dusty was a foal. They understood each other without words. Jake was eager to return to his family's ranch, nestled in the green valley beyond the town. He missed his mother's warm hugs, his father's booming laugh, and the playful antics of his younger siblings. He longed for the smell of freshly baked bread and the comfort of his own bed. He was a good man, honest and hardworking, with a deep respect for the land and all living creatures. He was coming home with calloused hands, an empty saddlebag, and a heart full of love for his family. He had no idea that his life was about to change forever. As Jake and Dusty entered the town, the bustling streets were a stark contrast to the quiet countryside. Wagons rattled, people shouted, and dogs barked. Jake guided Dusty carefully through the crowd, his eyes scanning the faces around him. That's when he saw her. Lily was sitting on the curb, her bare feet dusty and her face smudged with dirt. She held a small piece of bread in her hand, and she was carefully breaking off tiny crumbs and offering them to a small, brown bird perched on the edge of the sidewalk. The bird chirped happily, hopping closer to Lily with each offering. Jake reined in Dusty, his gaze fixed on the scene before him. He noticed the holes in Lily's dress and the sadness in her eyes, a sadness that seemed too big for someone so young. He was struck by the gentle way she treated the bird, the care she took in sharing her meager meal. Most people would have shooed the bird away, especially if they were hungry themselves. But Lily was different. There was a quiet dignity about her, a resilience that shone through the dirt and despair. Jake's heart went out to her. He knew in that moment that he couldn't just ride by, could dismounted Dusty, his boots thudding softly on the dusty ground. He approached Lily slowly, careful not to frighten her or the bird. He spoke in a gentle voice, the kind he used when calming a skittish calf. "Hello there, little one," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "That's a mighty fine thing you're doing, sharing your bread like that." Lily looked up, her eyes wide and wary. She clutched the remaining piece of bread tightly in her hand, ready to run if she needed to. She had learned to be cautious of strangers. Jake knelt down, bringing himself closer to her level. He kept his distance, giving her space. "My name is Jake," he said, extending his hand slowly, palm up, in a gesture of peace. "What's yours?" Lily hesitated for a moment, studying his face. She saw kindness in his eyes, a genuine warmth that eased her apprehension. Slowly, cautiously, she whispered, "Lily." "It's nice to meet you, Lily," Jake replied, smiling gently. "Would you mind if I sat here with you for a bit?" He gestured towards the curb beside her. He then reached into his saddlebag, pulling out a plump, red apple. "I have this. Would you like it?" Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the apple. It was big and shiny, a perfect crimson red. She hadn't seen an apple in. She couldn't even remember how long. She nodded shyly, accepting the offering. She took a small bite, the sweet juice bursting in her mouth. It was the most delicious thing she had tasted in ages. "Thank you," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. Jake smiled. "You're welcome, Lily. So, tell me," he said gently, "where do you live?" Lily hesitated, her eyes darting around nervously. She didn't want to tell him she lived on the streets. She was afraid he would judge her or worse, call the authorities. But Jake's kind eyes seemed to encourage honesty. I don't really have a home," she confessed quietly, her voice barely a whisper. Jake's heart sank. He had suspected as much, but hearing it aloud was even more heartbreaking. "So, you're all alone?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Lily nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't have any family," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. "It's just me." Jake put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Well, Lily," he said, "I'm heading back to my family's ranch. We have plenty of room and plenty of food. How would you like to come with me? You could have a warm bed and 3 meals a day." He paused, then added, "My family are very kind." His offer hung in the air, a beacon of hope in Lily's desolate world. But deep down, a flicker of fear ignited. Could she really trust him? Was it possible that someone could be so genuinely kind? Her experiences had taught her to expect disappointment, to brace herself for the inevitable letdown. A memory surfaced, unbidden, in Jake's mind. He was a small boy, no older than Lily, lost and alone in the woods after wandering away from his parents during a family picnic. The sun had begun to set, casting long, eerie shadows, and fear had gripped him tightly. He remembered the overwhelming panic, the desperate cries for his mother and father that were swallowed by the vastness of the forest. Then, a kind old woman, gathering berries, had found him, soothed his fears, and led him back to his frantic parents. He never forgot the warmth of her hand, the comforting words that eased his terror. That memory had shaped him. He understood Lily's hesitation. He, too, had once known what it was like to be utterly alone and at the mercy of strangers. He gently squeezed Lily's shoulder. "I promise, Lily," he said, his voice sincere, "I won't let anything happen to you. My family will welcome you with open arms." He smiled reassuringly. "We lost my grandfather last year. The house has felt very empty since. You would be doing us a kindness, too." His words resonated with Lily, and her resolve softened. She looked at his face, etched with the lines of hard work and sincerity, and a tiny spark of hope flickered within her. She thought of the warm bed, the regular meals, and the possibility of belonging. It was a dream she hadn't dared to imagine. Flashback. The air crackled with the memory of a cold, starless night. A much younger Jake, barely 7 years old, huddled beneath a thin blanket, shivering uncontrollably. The flickering flames of a campfire danced wildly, casting long, distorted shadows on the faces of the men around him. They were rough-looking men, cowboys like his father, but their eyes held a sadness he couldn't understand. His parents were gone. A sudden flash flood had swept through their campsite, carrying them away in the raging current. He remembered his mother's sweet lullaby, sung just hours before, and his father's strong arms lifting him high in the air. Now only silence and emptiness remained. He had been passed from relative to relative, each one struggling to cope with their own lives, unable to provide the love and stability he so desperately craved. He learned to be self-sufficient, to hide his emotions, to expect nothing from anyone. It was his grandfather who finally stepped in, offering him a permanent home on the ranch. His grandfather's gruff exterior hid a gentle heart. He taught Jake about hard work, responsibility, and the importance of family. End flashback. The memory faded, leaving Jake with a renewed sense of purpose. He wouldn't let Lily suffer the same fate he had endured. He would give her the love and security she deserved. The weight of Jake's past, now shared silently, seemed to lift a burden from Lily's shoulders. She studied his face, seeing not just kindness, but also understanding. She knew instinctively that she could trust him. The fear didn't vanish entirely, but it was overshadowed by a growing sense of hope, a fragile seed beginning to sprout in the barren landscape of her heart. Do you really mean it?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Would your family really want me?" Jake smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Of course we would, Lily. We have plenty of room, and my mother is a wonderful cook. She always says the more, the merrier. And my younger brother and sister would love to have someone new to play with." He paused, then added with a wink. "Besides, Dusty here could use a little company on the ride back to the ranch." Lily looked at Dusty, the gentle giant of a horse, and a small smile touched her lips. The thought of leaving the harsh city streets behind, of trading them for the wide-open spaces of a ranch, was almost too good to be true. She took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Yes," she said, her voice firm despite the tremor she felt inside. "Yes, I'll go with you." With a gentle boost from Jake, Lily climbed onto Dusty's back, settling behind him. The height was a little scary at first, but Dusty was calm and steady, and Jake's strong arms around her made her feel safe. They said goodbye to the little brown bird, now perched on a nearby lamppost, chirping a cheerful farewell. Then, with a soft click of his tongue, Jake guided Dusty out of the town and onto the open road. As they left the city behind, Lily's eyes widened in amazement. She had never seen anything like it. The tall buildings and crowded streets gave way to rolling green hills, dotted with wildflowers of every color imaginable. The air was clean and fresh, filled with the sweet scent of grass and trees. Above them, the sky stretched out forever, a vast expanse of blue dotted with fluffy white clouds. She had never seen so much space. In the city, the world felt small and confined, hemmed in by walls and buildings. Here, the world seemed to stretch on forever, full of endless possibilities. They passed fields of golden wheat swaying gently in the breeze, and sparkling rivers that wound their way through the valleys. Birds sang sweet melodies from the branches of the trees, and butterflies fluttered around them like living jewels. Lily couldn't stop smiling. It was as if she had stepped into a dream, a world of beauty and wonder she never knew existed. The countryside filled her with a sense of peace she had never experienced before. As they crested the final hill, the ranch came into view, a sprawling, sun-drenched homestead nestled in a valley. A plume of smoke curled lazily from the chimney, promising warmth and comfort. A dog barked excitedly, racing towards them, its tail wagging furiously. This was it. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. Jake slowed Dusty to a gentle trot as they approached the house. A woman with kind eyes and a warm smile emerged from the front door, wiping her hands on her apron. Two younger children, a boy and a girl, peeked out from behind her legs, their eyes wide with curiosity. "Jake, you're home!" the woman exclaimed, rushing forward to embrace him. "We've missed you so much." She hugged him tightly, then stepped back, her gaze falling on Lily. Her smile faltered slightly, a question in her eyes. "Mom, this is Lily?" Jake explained, placing a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "I found her in town. She doesn't have a family, and I thought we could give her a home here." For a moment there was silence. Then, Jake's mother's face softened, her eyes filling with compassion. She knelt down, taking Lily's hand in hers. "Welcome to our home, Lily," she said, her voice gentle. "We're so happy to have you." The two children, emboldened by their mother's warmth, crept closer. "I'm Billy," the boy said, "and this is Susie." Susie giggled. "Are you going to stay with us forever?" Jake's father, a tall, strong man with a weathered face, stepped forward, extending a hand to Lily. "Welcome to the family, Lily," he said, his voice booming but kind. "We're glad to have you." And just like that, Lily was welcomed into the family. The initial surprise quickly melted away, replaced by genuine warmth and acceptance. She felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. Mrs. Miller, Jake's mother, led Lily upstairs to a small, cozy room with a window overlooking the rolling hills. A patchwork quilt lay neatly on the bed, and a small, stuffed bear sat perched on the pillow. "This will be your room, Lily," Mrs. Miller said, her voice warm and gentle. "I hope you like it." Lily could only nod, her throat tight with emotion. It was more beautiful than anything she could have ever imagined. First, Mrs. Miller drew a warm bath for Lily, filling the tub with fragrant, bubbly water. Lily sank into the water with a sigh of contentment, the warmth soothing her tired muscles and washing away the grime of the city. She had never felt so clean, so relaxed. After her bath, Mrs. Miller dressed her in a soft, clean nightgown that had belonged to Susie. It was a little big, but it felt wonderful against her skin. Downstairs, the aroma of roasted chicken and freshly baked bread filled the air. The Miller family gathered around the large, wooden table, their faces beaming with warmth and welcome. Lily sat beside Jake, feeling a sense of belonging she had never known before. The food was delicious, the best she had ever tasted. But it wasn't just the food that made the meal so special. It was the laughter, the conversation, the feeling of being part of something bigger than herself. As she drifted off to sleep that night, tucked snugly beneath the warm quilt, Lily felt safe and secure for the first time in her life. The fear that had haunted her for so long began to fade away, replaced by a quiet sense of hope. She was home. The days that followed were filled with new experiences and discoveries for Lily. She woke each morning to the sound of birdsong and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. She helped Mrs. Miller with chores around the house, learning to bake bread, tend to the garden, and care for the chickens. She quickly made friends with the animals on the ranch. She loved feeding the chickens, collecting their warm eggs, and watching them peck and scratch in the dirt. She spent hours brushing Dusty, talking to him in a soft voice, and marveling at his gentle nature. She even befriended a shy, little lamb that had been separated from its mother, nursing it back to health with a bottle of milk. As she worked alongside the Miller family, Lily began to blossom. The sadness that had clouded her eyes began to fade, replaced by a sparkle of joy. She learned new skills, discovering a talent for gardening and a natural ability to care for animals. With each small success, her confidence grew. She started to laugh more, to play with Billy and Susie, to share her stories and dreams with the family. She learned that she was good at mending clothes, and Mrs. Miller started teaching her how to sew. She felt useful, valued, and loved. The little girl who had once been a shadow in the city was now a vibrant, integral part of the Miller family. She was finally home, not just in a physical sense, but in her heart as well. The newfound peace and happiness Lily found at the Miller ranch were threatened by a looming shadow. Mr. Grumbly, a gruff, old neighbor with a perpetually sour expression, had always been a thorn in the Miller family's side. He was known for his complaining, his suspicion of outsiders, and his general dislike of anything that disrupted his routine. Mr. Grumbly's land bordered the Miller ranch, and a long-standing fence dispute had fueled years of animosity between the two families. He saw Lily as nothing more than a street urchin, a troublemaker who didn't belong in their quiet community. One afternoon, while Lily was tending to the garden, Mr. Grumbly approached the fence, his face contorted in a scowl. "You there, girl!" he barked, his voice harsh and grating. "What do you think you're doing?" Lily, startled by his sudden appearance, jumped back, her heart pounding in her chest. I'm just helping Mrs. Miller with the garden," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "Humph," Mr. Grumbly scoffed. "A street rat like you doesn't know anything about gardening. You're probably just stealing from them. You probably ran away from some bad place, maybe you're even a thief." Lily's eyes welled up with tears. His words stung, dredging up the painful memories of her past. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear back into the shadows where she felt she belonged. "You don't belong here," Mr. Grumbly continued, his voice dripping with venom. "You're nothing but trouble. You'll see. It's people like you who ruin good families." Hearing Mr. Grumbly's harsh words, Jake strode purposefully towards the fence, his jaw tight with anger. He had overheard the entire exchange while mending a broken fence post nearby. He wasn't about to let Mr. Grumbly bully Lily. "Mr. Grumbly," Jake said, his voice low but firm, "I'd appreciate it if you'd leave Lily alone." Mr. Grumbly scoffed. "And what if I don't, Miller? Are you going to stop me? That girl's nothing but a—" "She's a member of our family now," Jake interrupted, his eyes blazing with anger. "And I won't tolerate you speaking to her like that. She's kind, hard-working, and has a heart of gold. She's done nothing but good since she came here." He stepped closer to the fence, his presence towering over the older man. "Lily is welcome here, and she's staying. If you have a problem with that, you can take it up with me." Lily watched from the garden, tears streaming down her face. She had never had anyone stand up for her like that before. Jake's words were like a shield, protecting her from the harshness of the world. Jake turned to Lily, his expression softening. "Don't listen to him, Lily," he said, his voice gentle. "You belong here. You're one of us, and we will always protect you." He looked back at Mr. Grumbly. "Now, I suggest you leave Lily alone." Mr. Grumbly, taken aback by Jake's unwavering defense of Lily, mumbled something unintelligible and retreated to his property. While he didn't offer an apology, his harsh words ceased. Lily, still shaken, found comfort in the arms of Mrs. Miller, who had rushed to the garden after witnessing the confrontation. The entire family rallied around her, showering her with love and support, reaffirming her place in their home. A few days later, Lily, remembering Mr. Grumbly's complaints about his overgrown garden, decided to take action. Without telling anyone, she spent the morning weeding and tidying up the small patch of land near the fence. She planted a few colorful wildflowers, hoping to brighten up his dreary yard. Mr. Grumbly watched her from his window, his expression unreadable. He didn't say a word, but Lily noticed a flicker of something, perhaps surprise, perhaps gratitude in his eyes. The following week, one of Mr. Grumbly's cows wandered onto the Miller's property. Instead of getting angry, Jake and Lily carefully guided the cow back to its pasture, repairing the broken section of fence that had allowed it to escape. Mr. Grumbly, witnessing their act of kindness, finally broke down. He approached Jake and Lily, his face etched with remorse. I was wrong about you, Lily," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "You're a good girl, and you Millers, you're good people." He offered a sincere apology, and a fragile truce was formed. Kindness and forgiveness had triumphed over prejudice and bitterness, strengthening the bonds of family and community. Years passed, and Lily blossomed into a confident and capable young woman. The little girl who had once roamed the streets, barefoot and hopeless, was now a vital part of the Miller family, her laughter echoing through the ranch house. She excelled in school, her thirst for knowledge insatiable. She devoured books, her imagination soaring to new heights. She discovered a talent for writing, crafting stories that captivated Billy and Susie, and even brought tears to Mrs. Miller's eyes. She continued to care for the animals, her gentle touch soothing even the most skittish creatures. She became known throughout the community for her skill in training horses, her patience and understanding earning her the trust of even the wildest mustangs. She also developed a passion for art, spending hours sketching the landscapes around the ranch, capturing the beauty of the rolling hills, the sparkling rivers, and the majestic sunsets. Her artwork adorned the walls of the ranch house, a testament to her talent and her love for her new home. Lily had found her place in the world, a place where she was loved, valued, and respected. She had discovered her own talents and passions, and she embraced them with enthusiasm and joy. She was no longer just Lily, the street urchin. She was Lily Miller, a writer, an artist, an animal lover, and a cherished member of a loving family. She was finally truly happy. The pain of her past had faded, replaced by the bright promise of a future filled with hope and endless possibilities. One warm summer evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the Miller family gathered on the porch. They were enjoying a quiet moment together, sharing stories and laughter. Lily, feeling a deep sense of gratitude, knew she had to express what was in her heart. She took a deep breath and turned to Jake and his family, her eyes shining with sincerity. I don't know how to thank you all," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "You took me in when I had nothing, when I was all alone. You gave me a home, a family, and a second chance at life." Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of joy, not sadness. "I'll never forget what you've done for me," she continued. "You've shown me what it means to be loved, to be valued, to belong. You've taught me the importance of kindness, forgiveness, and family." She paused, her gaze lingering on each member of the Miller family, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. "I'm so lucky to have you all in my life," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You're not just my family, you're my everything. I will never, ever forget what you have done for me. I promise to make you proud every day." Mrs. Miller rose from her chair and embraced Lily tightly. "Oh, Lily," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You've given us just as much joy. You have made us a family again, truly." The rest of the family joined in, enveloping Lily in a warm, loving hug, a testament to the unbreakable bond they shared. Ko watched Lily as she laughed with his family, her eyes sparkling with happiness. He remembered the first time he saw her, a small, lost girl sharing her meager meal with a bird. He had been moved by her kindness then, but now, seeing her blossom into a confident and capable young woman, his feelings had deepened into something much more profound. He had always felt protective of her, a sense of responsibility for her well-being. But over the years, that protectiveness had evolved into something more, something akin to a deep, abiding love. He admired her strength, her compassion, her unwavering spirit. He cherished her laughter, her smile, her gentle nature. He realized that Lily was no longer just someone he had helped, someone he had rescued from a difficult situation. She was someone he admired, someone he respected, someone he loved with all his heart. He thought about their future together, a future filled with shared dreams and endless possibilities. He knew that confessing his feelings would be a risk. He was afraid of jeopardizing their friendship, of disrupting the happy family dynamic they had created. But he couldn't deny the truth any longer. He loved her, and he knew he had to tell her. He knew in his heart that she was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with, growing old on their beautiful ranch. His greatest wish was to make her his wife. He wanted to make sure she knew that he loved her for who she was, her beautiful heart, her kindness, and her unwavering spirit. The next morning, Jake found Lily in the stable, tending to Dusty. The sun streamed through the open doorway, illuminating her face and highlighting the gentle curve of her smile. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to do. He approached her slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. "Lily," he said, his voice soft. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Lily looked up, her eyes meeting his. She saw the sincerity in his gaze, the love that shone through. She knew, instinctively, that something important was about to happen. They walked outside, away from the bustle of the ranch, to a secluded spot beneath a sprawling oak tree. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers, and the only sound was the gentle rustling of leaves. Jake took her hand in his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "Lily," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I know this might come as a surprise, but I need to tell you how I feel." He paused, gathering his courage. "When I first saw you, sharing your bread with that little bird, I knew there was something special about you. Over the years, that feeling has only grown stronger. You're kind, compassionate, and the most amazing person I know." He looked deep into her eyes, his own filled with love and sincerity. "Lily," he whispered, "I love you. Stay with me forever." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. She had secretly harbored feelings for Jake for a long time, admiring his kindness, his strength, and his unwavering belief in her. She had never dared to dream that he could feel the same way about her. "Oh, Jake," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "I love you too." She threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. He held her tight, his heart overflowing with happiness. They stood there for a long moment, embraced in the warmth of their love, the sun shining down upon them like a blessing. The story concludes with a sense of hope, love, and the enduring power of kindness. Lily, once a homeless and hopeless little girl, had found her forever home, not just in a place, but in the heart of the man she loved. The final scene shows Lily and Jake working side by side on the ranch, their faces beaming with happiness. They are surrounded by their family, Billy and Susie now grown with families of their own, Mrs. Miller tending to her garden, and Mr. Grumbly, now a friendly neighbor, waving from across the fence. Dusty grazes peacefully in the pasture, a symbol of the journey that had brought them all together. They are a true family, bound by love, loyalty, and a shared belief in the power of kindness. Lily had no shoes, no hope, no place to sleep, until a cowboy whispered, "Stay with me forever," and changed her life forever. The end.